Today's book is Words Have a Past, and I don't have the author in front of me, but Jane Griffith. Words Have a Past by Jane Griffith. It's a book that looks at residential school newspapers, kind of in Canada, but there wasn't a lot, so Canada and the US, and it uses the language that they used to show how settler colonial narrative worked with Indigenous peoples. I read this because I'm a white dude who's 40, literally just like last week, and I don't know a lot about these things because even when I was in school, this was not something we talked about. So I thought I should learn about it, and this was sitting in the library, and I thought it was a good book to start my learning process around the Indigenous issues in Canada. So buckle up, let's give a brief summary of this book. Like I already said, Words Have a Past is built on reading and following, but reading the narratives put forward in residential school newspapers and following how that works. One idea is they constantly framed Indigenous peoples as terrible parents and basically like just bad, but they always framed white people as good parents, right? They'd show those families together, but they'd only show pictures of Native families apart. That's one way they did it. How they framed the narrative around it. Another thing they did regularly was anytime they talked about Indigenous practices, it was in the past tense, but anytime they talked about colonial practices, it was in the future tense. And really what a lot of it came down to was that Indigenous people did stuff different than white settlers, and white settlers thought it was stupid. They're bad. So they said, you can't do it. Even as they, in some cases, said, like, especially around language, like, you're not allowed to speak your language except to me, or when I say it's okay, in shows to show off my school so I can get funding for the school, so I can show that, like, have like a good Native show and attract people and get donations to the school. Then you're allowed to speak your language, but that's it. And you'd get, in big trouble otherwise. So the stealing of the language in many cases as well. Another thing these school newspapers did regularly was frame everything as the Indigenous or the Native problem, Indian problem, they would have said back then. And so that engaged in the language engages in removing natives from the land. This is not their land that they were on first, that we are now joining them on or forcing ourselves on. This is the Indian problem on our land, right? Now, the truth behind this is they probably should have framed it as the colonial settler problem because they were really bringing the problems with them. Another fairly common thread in here was, I already talked about it a bit, but linguicide, where you weren't allowed to speak your language at school unless, I wanted to collect it for my native Indian or my Indian words book where I was looking at translations. Ethnography. That sucks. Yeah, that really sucks. I mean, ultimately in this, my goal was to start developing a reading list or something else along the lines that will help me understand more where Indigenous people come from. So I would totally say that I have been racist, I guess, in my past, where I thought that, yeah, Indigenous people needed to just suck it up because, white people are here and tough luck. And that's not okay. So this is my starting attempt to change some of that, right? To understand it more, to understand where Indigenous peoples are coming from so that I can be more empathetic. And this is part of me listening. So there's a few issues around this, race, LGBTQ issues that I am listening on and reading on and not weighing in on, really. Because I'm a white dude. I don't have experience in these areas, and my life is totally different. And I've got a lot of privilege. And the only way for me to get past that, to get past it, to have better understanding of people is to start doing some research myself. So that is where we're at. If you liked the video, if you want to see more videos, book reviews, then by all means, give me a thumbs up below and subscribe. But never hit the bell because you should go do other stuff like read a book or hang out with your kids or something else. Don't get a notification when I put up a video because you got better things to do than just wait for me to put up a video. You should, however, subscribe. So have a good one.